All right, hello there, welcome back to another wee bit different video. Today's video, we are going to be going through every single team's off-season grade that I'm giving, of course, myself. This video is 100% opinion-based, but I think we can have some common ground on some common sense, and some teams having a bad off-season, some teams having a good off-season. We're going to be getting into all that kind of stuff. And bear with me, as this will probably be a little bit of a longer video just because there's, of course, 30 NBA teams. And I don't want to just give a 10-second grade and move past them. I want it to be with a little bit of explanation at the very least. I'm not going to spend 10 minutes on one team, of course, because do the math, 10 minutes on one team for 30 NBA teams. We're looking at a 300-minute video. It's not happening. Anyway, let's get straight to it. First team we have is Atlanta Hawks. They re-signed nobody. In terms of additions, they got Dyson Daniels, EJ Liddell, Larry Nance Jr., Cody Zeller. Departures, AJ Griffin and DeJounte Murray. Now, what they received from that DeJounte Murray trade, we can actually go straight to it. The Hawks received the players that we listed, and then a 2025 first-round pick via Lakers, 2027 first-round pick, least favorable of Bucks, Pelicans, top 4 protected. Now, the offseason isn't over, so these are the grades thus far. And I truly believe that if the Hawks want to completely rebuild, right, because they just had the first pick, and in their first pick, they picked Zachary Resetcher. I don't really know how to pronounce it. I even watched the draft. I knew he was French, and I'm just like, I still don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, getting the #1 pick for the Hawks is obviously huge because it helps them kind of speed up the process in terms of finding young talent. And the difference between a 9th and 10th pick versus a #1 pick, although in a weaker draft, is still really massive. So then being able to pick #1 helps tremendously in terms of what they want to do moving forward. In terms of their overall grade, obviously they're not a better team. They knew that by trading DeJounte. They're going to be less competitive, but they still have players like Jalen Johnson. They still have players like Trae Young. And obviously, just drafting a first pick. It's going to be interesting to see what the Hawks do, but I'd be curious to see if they're going to trade Trae Young. As of right now, as of this exact moment, I would say the Hawks get a B-. Reason being is because they still are caught in the middle of, we want to rebuild, but we're still keeping Trae Young. It's kind of weird, right? I feel like they kind of just have to pick between one or the other. If they trade Trae Young, they can get a haul for him. If they decide to keep him, obviously they're not going to be one of the worst teams in the league, so they can't just completely tank. Maybe that's not what they're shooting for. Nevertheless, I would give them a B-. Moving on to the next team, we would have Boston Celtics. Luke Cornett returns on a 1-year deal. Neemias Queta returns on a multi-year deal. Jason Tatum agrees on a 5-year max extension. Xavier Tillman returns on a 2-year deal. Derek White agrees to a 4-year extension. So with the Celtics, there's not really a lot they could do other than just really try and keep their roster the way it is because they were so good. So for those reasons, also considering the fact that in their draft, I think they had the 30th pick, Baylor Sherman. So for those reasons, just keeping the core, we're going to give them a B. You can't really give them anything lower or anything higher because they didn't necessarily do anything, but considering they're coming off a championship run and they didn't lose anyone, kind of have to be happy about that. So you could argue even higher than a B. I'm just going to give them a B for the sake of nothing happened. But again, I would like to clarify, nothing happening when you're coming off the year you're coming off is probably a good thing. Brooklyn Nets. Nick Claxton returns on a new deal. Trenton Wofford returns on a new deal. Adding Bojan Bogdanovic, Mamadi Diakite, I don't even know how to pronounce that, Shake Milton. Obviously losing Mikal Bridges, Keita Bates-Diop. And in that Mikal Bridges trade, they got a lot. So they got Bates-Diop, Mikal Bridges, Juan Pablo Valle, who I believe they probably waived. Anyway, they had to give up Bojan Bogdanovic, Shake Milton, Mamadi, whose name I can't pronounce very well. 2025 Knicks first round pick. 2025 first round pick via Milwaukee, top 4 protected. So you're probably looking at 2 2025 20s-ish first round picks. I think the Knicks definitely have a championship squad. Bucks, if they're healthy, they could easily compete. So you're looking at probably later picks in 2025, but a 2027 first round pick, a 2028 first round pick swap, a 2029 first round pick, and a 2031 first round pick. Nevertheless, the Nets are able and willing to finally go into a complete rebuild. They also did get some of their picks back in another trade. Which trade was that? It was with the Rockets, I believe. Okay, it seems like it's not shown on NBA's trade tracker, which is odd. But for sure, the Nets did get their own picks back in a trade with the Rockets. Again, I can't seem to find it, but it did happen. So the Nets, while a lot of people are frustrated that they have to go into this complete rebuild, I'm glad that they finally picked a direction and they're able to completely tank and get, a really good pick next year in what is supposed to be a really good draft class. With the Brooklyn Nets, I would honestly give them a B+ in that they finally went a direction. They got a shit ton of picks from Mikal Bridges. The only reason why it's not an A- or A or A+ or higher is because you're still having to suffer for the next 3 to 4 years. And any off seasons where you admit to that suffering is not ideal, but they were never going to win with Mikal anyway as their best player. Team just wasn't good enough. So it would have been a worse off season. So anyhow, I would give them a B+ because they're going with the direction. They're admitting that this roster isn't good enough, and they've stacked up on picks and they've gotten their own picks back. So again, the rebuild is in full effect. Charlotte Hornets, Miles Bridges returns on a 3-year deal. Additions, Josh Green, Reggie Jackson. Departures, Davis Bertans, Bryce McGowens, Aleksej Pokusevski, who was a former Thunder, got traded to the Hornets, part of that Gordon Hayward trade. Not only that, the Hornets did draft pretty high. What was it? 6, Tijani Saloon. Don't know too much about this year's draft class, but a number 6 pick is obviously a really strong pick. Again, in a weaker draft class, but you have to be happy nonetheless if you're a Hornets fan, considering that it's just another young player to add into the mix. But how do I feel? What do I think about this Hornets offseason? Honestly, I would say like a B-. There's not a lot they could have done to begin with. They weren't going to trade for a win now kind of superstar player. What they needed to do is surround as best as possible Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball. Bringing back Miles Bridges, as much as a POS as he is in real life, he's still a solid basketball player, so I understand why they did that. Adding Josh Green basically for free, really strong. Getting Reggie Jackson to have as a backup point guard, not great, but not bad. But still embracing the fact that they need to develop this young roster. And who's their new head coach? Charlotte Hornets did hire a new head coach. I totally forgot who it was. And Charles Lee is their head coach. Again, not going to front with you guys. Don't know too much about him, but it's nice to get Steve Clifford out of there. That was never a good idea. So, Charlotte Hornets, not a great offseason by any means, but continuing to do what they've been doing, which is just gather young talent and try and surround that young talent with other pieces, right? And again, bringing back Miles Bridges, bringing in Josh Green, bringing in a veteran like Reggie Jackson, having the 6th pick. Far from a great offseason, but not a bad one. I would say a B-. Chicago Bulls finally realizing that they are just going to go nowhere with DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine and Alex Caruso. In terms of their offseason, it's been shocking. They flat out traded Alex Caruso in a straight up pick for Josh Giddey. They had to, of course, do a sign and trade with DeRozan because they were not just going to let him walk for nothing. So they ended up receiving Chris Duarte, Raheem Gray, and 2 future second-round picks, which is just not a whole lot. Ended up signing Jalen Smith, so not bad. But again, losing these 3, Alex Caruso, DeMar, and Andre Drummond, still being stuck on the Zach LaVine contract. The Bulls offseason, probably a really, really, really frustrating one for a lot of Bulls fans because you don't have enough young talent to really look forward to a whole lot. Your pick in this year's draft was 11, Matas Buzelis. You're not expecting him to be a superstar, so it's like not a great look. I would definitely say C- for the Bulls. Arguably a D. The only reason why I'm saying C- is because they finally realized, hey, we're not gonna win shit with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, AC, Drummond as our starting unit, bro. You know, signing Patrick Williams on a 5-year deal. It's not like they paid him out the ass. I think it was 20 mil, 5 years, so 100 mil total. Not crazy, not bad. So, the only reason I would not say it's a D is because they finally got out of it. I think getting out of a funk is a start. And Josh Giddey is 21. But no, this team is... Oh, man. I'm feeling for the Bulls fans. This is a bad offseason. Now, you could definitely say D. I would say... Honestly, now that I think about it more, I would say D+ instead of a C-. Yeah, it's just... I'm giving them credit for getting out of this trying to be competitive state, because now they fully realize, like, yo, we're not going to be competitive, but still... Cleveland Cavaliers adding Donovan Mitchell on a 3-year extension. They did nothing else. I don't think they did any trades, if I can remember correctly. Let me double check this. Even if they did, it would be for picks, because they didn't receive or depart with anyone else. So, yeah, it looks like the Cavs. Yeah, that's all they did. And who did they draft? Who did the Cavs draft? The Cavs drafted Jason Tyson. Quiet offseason. Obviously, they needed to bring Donovan Mitchell on that extension. Had to. Gave up a lot to get him. But is this going to change how competitive they're going to be? I mean, we saw what they did this past year. 4-1 to Boston. Sure, you could say, oh, but Donovan Mitchell didn't play game 3, game 4. But, dude, like, you weren't going to beat Boston anyway. You're not going to beat Philly anyway. So, I'm just not sure. I'm just not sold on what's going on in Cleveland. Of course, again, you have to sign Donovan Mitchell to that extension. But to not switch things up, not change anything, and to just change the head coach and say, let's just try it again. I don't think it's a terrible idea, because you did get to the second round. But they have to know they're not good enough to beat Boston or Philly. Probably not Milwaukee if Milwaukee's healthy. Definitely not the Knicks. So, maybe not even the Pacers. So, I don't know. I'm not necessarily bought in with what Cleveland's doing by just switching up the head coaches and saying that'll be enough. I don't think it's enough. Do I think it's a bad offseason per se? No, definitely not. It could have gone so much worse by just not getting Donovan Mitchell to that extension. I would give Cleveland a C to C+. C or C+. Reason why I'm not saying B or higher is because, again, you did a great job of signing Donovan Mitchell. But this roster, without question, is not good enough to compete for a championship. So it's almost like you're settling for just being competitive, period, but not competitive enough for a championship. And it's like, again, getting rid of JB Bickerstaff, good move, switch things up. But is a head coach going to make this team all of a sudden good enough to beat the teams that I listed before? So maybe they do something at the trade deadline. Maybe they make a big splash. Maybe this offseason is just settling in, seeing how you do for the first half of the season. Maybe. That's why I say C or C+, because it's like you're not doing anything. You're settling down. You're being patient. And that might be the correct approach. Hindsight is 20/20. We might look at this at the trade deadline like, oh my gosh, it's a good thing they didn't do anything, too drastic. They made a great move at the trade deadline. That was when they should have made the move. Hindsight's going to be 20/20 on this. It always is anyway, but it's going to definitely show how well this offseason was based off of how they do in the first half of the season, which I think they'll do solid. I think Cleveland's a really good regular season team. It's just that when the chips are down. Are they better than Boston in the playoffs? Are they better than Philly, the Knicks, Bucks, Pacers, Magic, maybe? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So C or C plus is what I'm gonna leave it at. Dallas Mavericks re-signing no one, but they added Quentin Grimes, Najee Marshall, Klay Thompson. They did depart with, however, Josh Green, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Derrick Jones Jr. Of course, Josh Green needing to go to bring in Klay Thompson. Of course, Tim Hardaway they wanted to get rid of anyway for salary purpose to bring in Klay Thompson. And Derrick Jones Jr. they just actually weren't able to re-sign, so that's unfortunate for them. In terms of how the offseason went for the Mavericks, it's an interesting one because, you know, you could argue saying they're a better team. Klay Thompson makes them a better team. Najee Marshall, nice physical defender, helps the team. Quentin Grimes, play some defense, knock down some threes. You could argue for Mavericks and say, oh, this was a phenomenal offseason. Who did they draft, by the way? I'm actually really curious to find that one out. The Mavericks drafted. Do they have a first round pick? No. Mavericks did not have a first round pick. So the draft is irrelevant. Irrelevant draft, and it's literally just these names. Are the Mavericks going to win a championship? Are they better than they were last year enough to push them over the edge? What you're betting on if you're the Mavericks is, for one, Klay being a little bit of old Klay and having a little more movement than last season. Najee Marshall, you're betting on to fit with Jason Kidd and his system and being able to be a physical defender. Quentin Grimes, if he does get run, you're betting on him just knocking down the open threes, playing some solid defense. So I can't say for sure if they're a better team or worse team. I don't think they're worse. I think there's more potential to this team because Tim Hardaway was just not it for them. Josh Green, I think, was solid, but I mean, he ended up getting 10 minutes in playoff games. And Derrick Jones Jr. was getting a lot of run, but they're flipping Derrick Jones Jr. for, again, a more physical Najee Marshall on defense, and Klay Thompson being an absolute sniper, especially with Luka. So Dallas, I would give them a B-, maybe a B, right? Because they're not coming off of a bad year. They're coming off of a finals run. They're coming off of a finals run where their best player, Luka Doncic, was also hurt. So they wanted to not necessarily do anything drastic, because I don't think they did. You know, switching up with the role players isn't drastic changes, but they left themselves with room to grow, is what I would say. That's how I would put this Mavericks offseason. They left themselves with room to grow, and their potential, their ceiling is higher with the players they now have. Do I think it's going to be that much of a change? No. Hence the B-. But you have to appreciate, again, them giving themselves more potential on the team to be more deadly. Denver Nuggets have had a pretty rough offseason. Obviously departing with Reggie Jackson, losing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to the Magic. Dario Saric, cool, but they haven't done anything. And losing KCP is huge. Reggie Jackson did get run on that team. I just don't know how anyone can say the Nuggets are better after this year. Losing KCP was huge. Huge loss. And again, they're betting on Christian Brown and Watson to be better. I don't know. I'm going through the trades to see if they made anything else. But this is looking like just a bad offseason for the Nuggets. I don't think anyone... I think this is almost universally agreed that they aren't a better team for this. I don't know. Denver Nuggets, I would give them a D. They've done nothing. Adding Dario is not making them better than them losing Reggie Jackson and KCP. Although Reggie Jackson, I'm pretty sure, was because of salary. Was that why they got rid of him? Nevertheless, it's just bad. This is just bad offseason for the Nuggets. There's no other way to write this up. I'm giving them a D. They did not add anything. They did not be a better team with more potential. They didn't get picks. Like, they straight up just lost KCP. I mean, they had to have gone picks, but because they did trade Ryan Dunn, but I'm curious as to what the hell they got. I couldn't find anything on them, so they received Deron Holmes. Yeah, I don't think the Nuggets are better for this. Detroit Pistons, oddly enough, I kind of agree with their offseason, in that they did get Wendell Moore Jr., Paul Reed, Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, just a bunch of veterans. I mean, I don't know if you consider Wendell Moore a veteran yet, but Cade Cunningham getting into a 5-year deal, re-signing Simone Fontecchio, who's a really good shooter, departing with James Wise and Quentin Grimes, but kind of just surrounding this team with more experience. And listen, you're not going to be doing some crazy shit in terms of playoff damage, but just to where you're not the worst team anymore, I think they have enough players to where they can be like, okay, we got, some guys who can do some work. And drafting Ron Holland, adding more young talent to this team that desperately needs it, because Cade Cunningham is the best player, without question. I think it's a solid offseason. And typically when you think of solid offseason, you think, oh, we're making this team contenders, or we added some first-round pick like Wemby, like for the Spurs. No, they had a 5th pick. They added Ron Holland, but they did keep Cade, and they're trying to surround Jaden Ivey and Oscar Thompson, guys like that, with more experience. So I like the Pistons offseason. I would give them a B or B+. Not in the sense of they're competing. Of course they're not. In the sense of they've given themselves an opportunity to not be the worst team in the league and to show Cade Cunningham that, hey, we want to build around you in the best way that we can. And I like that. I do. And, they'll get another pick next year, add more young talent, looking down the long road of, okay, we got to start somewhere, and they're moving past last year. Golden State has had an interesting offseason in that they brought in Kyle Anderson, they brought in Buddy Hield, they brought in D'Anthony Melton, Lindy Waiters, losing Chris Paul because they had to waive him, losing Dario Saric, losing Klay Thompson. They're not competing for a championship without question, but considering the circumstances that they were dealt, or the hand that they were dealt, pretty solid offseason, all things considered. Right? They don't have a lot, dude. Like, you really think about it. Their core right now is Steph, Draymond, Wiggins, Podziemski. Who's their center? Kevon Looney. So you really think about it, the Warriors just don't have a lot to work with, period. But D'Anthony Melton is a solid addition. Buddy Hield is a solid addition. Kyle Anderson, obviously not some crazy good player, but he's a solid veteran to bring onto the team. He was on the Timberwolves last year. So just considering what the Warriors have had to deal with, I don't think this is a bad offseason per se. I think that they're just trying to make the most of this. If they brought Paul George, it would have been way better. To be honest, it really would have been way better. But what do they have to work with? I mean, the offseason's not over. They definitely need someone else if they actually want to compete for a championship, but I give them a C+. They didn't have much to work with anyway, and they tried. You gotta give them credit where it's due. They tried. Houston Rockets didn't need to do much. Re-signing Aaron Holiday, adding AJ Griffin. At the very least, you can look at their draft and say they had the 3rd pick, drafting Reed Shepherd, which was nice. So you're adding more, buffing up this roster a little more, which is solid. But looking at the names, I mean, Amen Thompson, Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, Cam Whitmore, Deshaun Tate, Jabari Smith. Steven Adams was a nice little addition going on there. But just looking at this squad, they're not going to compete for a championship. But I think they're definitely settled in on, hey, we have Amen Thompson. We just drafted Reed Shepherd. Jalen Green, if he doesn't work out, still a promising young aspect. Fred VanVleet, solid player. Cam Whitmore, young talent. Jabari Smith, going into his 3rd year now, so they're hoping to see something out of him. I think they're just rocking with the young talent they have. Also, Alperen Sengun being some really good. So they're rocking with the young talent they have. And they're settled in on where they are. Look, we're not going to compete. but we're going to continue to build towards the future. We got some young studs in the building. All in all, I would give the Rockets a C+. I mean, they don't need to do much because there's not a lot they can do, and it's not like they're going to compete. Kind of just got to rock with what they have building off of last season, and that's just developing these young players. Reed Shepherd, another player to add into that mix in terms of young talent. Indiana Pacers didn't do too much. Re-signing Pascal Siakam was huge. Obi Toppin returning on a 4-year deal. Solid because he was solid for them. James Wiseman agreeing on a 2-year deal isn't much. Losing Jalen Smith, it's kind of like just like a little 1-for-1 going on there. In terms of the offseason tracker, I don't think I've been able to find any trades. Correct myself if I'm wrong in a second. Okay, they did a second round exchange of picks, getting Johnny Furphy. So, you know, there's that trade. But other than that, that's been it for the Pacers. Relatively quiet offseason that they're just keeping the guys that, you know, they made this run with, hoping that Tyrese stays healthy, hoping that Pascal can still be Pascal, hoping that young talent like Benedict Mathurin can come into the folds. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Pacers do this next coming up season because, again, they're coming off of a really, really strong run. Big question is health. And then again, guys like Benedict Mathurin, he is going to be an X factor for this team moving forward for sure. All in all, in terms of the offseason, I would give it a C+. I would give it a B- or a B. B- or a B in that they brought back Pascal on that 4-year deal, bringing back Obi Toppin. Don't need to do too much. I would just say B-, doing their job in terms of the re-signing. Addition of James Wiseman isn't much, but they did what they had to do, and they believe in the players they have. They just want to see them all on the court at the same time. Definitely shouldn't be switching up after a run like that. B- is what we'll go with. Clippers have had a terrible offseason. I would say a D. They lost Paul George for literally nothing. Literally nothing. That's the worst thing you can do as a team because obviously you want to trade your player if you know they're going to walk away. And then you say, oh, wait, but they're still competing for the playoffs last season. Then you have to get a contract extension. You can't lose PG for nothing, and they did. And then you pay Harden $35 million in 2 years, adding Mo Bamba, Nicholas Batum, Derrick Jones Jr., and Kevin Porter Jr., but this team's not competing for shit. Kawhi Leonard, who his health is a big question, just leaving Team USA. This team's literally fucked. Terrible offseason. Terrible offseason. Losing Paul George for nothing is just a killer. In terms of the Lakers literally did nothing other than draft Bronny, draft Dalton Connect, lose Taurean Prince, fire Darvin Ham, get JJ Redick, re-sign Braun on a 2-year deal with player option, re-signing Max Christie on a really good contract 4-year deal. But they have the same squad. The Lakers offseason, not a good one. I mean, you're happy you didn't lose LeBron, but LeBron was never realistically going to leave. I would say the only good thing, aside from the LeBron news, him, coming back, playing with the Sun, the only good thing to happen for the Lakers this offseason, honestly, that's a lie too, because Max Christie re-signing on a 4-year deal is a pretty big deal. I'd be ignorant to be like, that's not a good thing to happen. That is a good thing. But the only real change that we're probably going to notice in terms of the biggest impact is JJ Redick. That is going to determine so much of how this offseason is going to look. He can make this offseason look so smart because the Lakers, we always knew we had the players and the personnel. We always believed we had it. We just needed a guy to lead. They could look so smart or they could look so stupid because JJ Redick could do a terrible job and they could be like, oh, well, fuck. We fucked up. And honestly, the Lakers offseason, I'd give them a C- or a C. In that their squad is definitely good enough to do damage in the playoffs. Darvin Ham was a big issue, but to add no players, it's important that you brought LeBron back. For sure. Also drafting Dalton at 17. Amazing pick for the 17 pick. But damn, nothing, no additions. C- or C. But again, hindsight's 2020. This could look really genius if JJ Redick pans out and the Lakers say, we always believed in our personnel. We always believed in our roster. Memphis literally did nothing other than draft. Who was it? Who did Memphis draft? Zach Edey. I think their best bet was to probably do nothing anyway, all things considered, just because you did compete enough to be the second seed 2 seasons ago. Now, you got beaten by the Lakers in the first round, which is a massive disappointment for Memphis, but still having the core of Ja, Jaren, and Desmond, adding Zach Edey to that mix, you'd like to believe that this team is just going to be better. They're going to pull it together. We'll find out. All in all, Memphis Grizzlies offseason, a C. A C. Yeah, honestly, I was thinking like C plus for a second there, but no, they didn't do anything. They couldn't really do anything too crazy. Yeah, C. Miami Heat re-signing Bam Adebayo, Thomas Bryant, Haywood Highsmith, Kevin Love, adding Alec Burks, losing Caleb Martin though. That one hurt. Who do they draft? Who did I don't even know who Miami drafted. They drafted Kel L. Ware. Not a great offseason for Miami. Not a bad one. I think Alec Burks is actually going to work really well in Miami. But I don't think this team is better. You know what I mean? Losing Caleb Martin's a big deal. Not being able to land DeMar DeRozan, like, no trades. We don't know what's going to go on with Jimmy Butler. This is a weird offseason for Miami. I would give him like a C minus. They're not better is the problem. I mean, you could say, oh, if we're healthy, we're better. Okay. But can you honestly say that this was a successful offseason? I'm not going to say it was a failure, but it sure as hell was not a success. I'm going to go with a C minus. Milwaukee Bucks, who did they draft? They drafted AJ Johnson. Their offseason, oddly enough, kind of had to be nothing because Giannis was hurt. Dame was hurt. Chris Middleton was hurt all throughout the season. You get a head coach in the middle of the season. You know, you do lose Malik Beasley, but I guess DeLon Wright and Taurean Prince aren't bad additions. I mean, it's not a good offseason, but it doesn't change kind of the narrative around the Bucks in that there's not really much you can change other than just focus on Giannis and focus on Dame and focus on Chris and kind of rock with that. Now, I know Brook Lopez was trade rumor mill going on there, but just not a great offseason. There's just not much they could do. They're settling on the idea that, okay, we gotta rock with Giannis and Dame, and we made the splash last offseason. We just gotta hope they're healthy for this season, so we're not gonna change much. Give them a C minus. They didn't do much. Timberwolves re-signing Luke Garza, adding PJ Dozier. Jingles, I think, is a really sleepy good pickup, I should say. Losing Kyle Anderson, I don't think that's the end of the world. Jordan McLaughlin, okay. Wendell Moore Jr., okay. Monte Morrison, okay. They did add, though, which I really did like this pick up, I should say, because they didn't pick him. Spurs drafted Rob Dillingham from Kentucky. Minnesota came in and said, yo, we'll give you a 2031 first round pick, unprotected, and then we'll give you a 2030 pick swap. Or what was it, 2030? I'm pretty sure it was. Anyway, I like what they did there. Minnesota's going to have to believe in their core. They're balls deep invested. Add a player like Jingles, who is, again, a sneaky good pickup. Able to shoot the three, able to kind of help out the team in ways that they couldn't really get from the guys that they lost. Kyle Anderson didn't have a reliable 3. Kyle Anderson, slow like Jingles, but Jingles kind of just offensively is more of a threat. This is what it is. So Minnesota, yeah, they're definitely invested in Anthony Edwards and his development, but it's also really nice for them to be able to add a guy like Rob Dillingham into that mix. That's pretty nice, considering as well they lost Jordan McLaughlin. I forgot to mention the grade here. I'm going to say a B for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I know they didn't do much, but adding Jingles and again Rob Dillingham, I love that even in the midst of a contending team, you can add a guy like Rob. So New Orleans Pelicans re-signed nobody, but adding Daniel Theis and DeJounte Murray, losing Cody Zeller, Jonas Valanciunas, Larry Nance, Najee Marshall, EJ Liddell, and Dyson Daniels. 4 of those players, I believe, Cody, Larry, EJ, and Dyson, were for DeJounte. They flat out just lost Jonas to free agency and Najee to free agency, but they did sign Daniel. Who did they draft? Who did the Pelicans draft? Pelicans drafted Yves Misi. Okay. All in all, an interesting offseason from the Pelicans, and probably not done yet, because I'm assuming Brandon Ingram's going to get traded. He might not, but I'm assuming he is. Now, are they better with DeJounte Murray? Of course. How much better? I have no idea. But it's good to see that, I mean, dude, they only gave up a 2025 Lakers first round pick and a 2026 or 7 pick swap. But it's not the best of the pick swap. It's the worst of the 2. I think at the same time, DeJounte Murray does add a lot to this team that they were pretty much missing. A guy who's able to finish in the interior, have a solid mid-range, but also play some really solid defense, do it on both ends of the court. Also someone who's able to just be a legitimate floor general. And you have to think about, before he was with the Hawks, he was that guy with the Spurs doing rebounding, assist, and scoring. He wasn't able to have the ball in his hands so much with the Hawks because kind of Trae Young's thing. So I do like DeJounte Murray a lot on this Pelicans team. Do I think it puts them over the top? No. But that's why I'm interested to see what they do with Brandon Ingram. You know what I mean? What are they going to get in return for him? What picks? What player? It's got to be picks, though, presumably, right? So we'll see. We'll see how this goes with the Pelicans. But all in all, I would say a B+ or A- for the Pelicans because they were aggressive. They made a move that did make them better. They are a better team. And who knows how it's going to look once they're all on the court together. The Knicks, for me, you know, this could age terribly depending on how this looks, but the Knicks get an A+ for me. Reason being, getting OG to return a 5-year deal is massive. Mikal Bridges added on to this team is fucking massive. Bates Diop isn't too much crazy. Now, of course, they lose Isaiah Hartenstein, which hurts them tremendously. Shake Milton, Mamadi, Alec Burks, Bojan Bogdanovic. Bojan wasn't a part of that playoff run at all because he was hurt. Shake Milton, did he get any run? I don't think he did. Alec Burks got very little run, a garbage time run, I believe. Isaiah Hartenstein was the big loss, but adding someone like Mikal and bringing back OG on a 5-year deal is fucking amazing. You lost because you didn't have guys like Julius Randle. You lost because Jalen Brunson getting hurt. You lost because injuries in general just really hurt your playoff chances. You come back this offseason with your starting 5 consisting of roughly Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson probably at the 5. I mean, damn. Hot damn. Coming off the bench, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo. I mean, dude. Yeah, just an absolute insane Knicks squad, and I'm really excited to watch them play basketball, especially on defense. Oklahoma City Thunder, A+. I mean, you really think about these changes, and they're massive. Isaiah Joe returning, Aaron Wiggins returning, Alex Caruso as an addition, and Isaiah Hartenstein to a team that was already looking like they're willing to break through in the coming years because I said this this past playoffs run, just in general, young teams on that first go typically don't really go the distance because experience is so crucial in playoffs. And the Oklahoma City Thunder got to the second round, losing to the Mavericks, but they're gaining that experience with a young squad in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, J-Dub, Chet Holmgren, guys like that, where they're really freaking good. Then you bring back a flamethrower in Isaiah Joe, solid player in Aaron Wiggins, a phenomenal defensive piece in Alex Caruso, finally a physical center, someone who you needed desperately on this team. Josh Giddey, of course, leaving, but he was a problem in the playoffs because they just didn't need someone who was a floor general because Shai was that guy. And then he lacked defense, so Lou Dort was having to work his ass off already really hard. Can't make up for Josh Giddey's fucking lack of defense. It wasn't working out. So the whole point I'm trying to make is you add a guy like Alex Caruso, you add a guy like Isaiah Hartenstein to this already young team with immense talent, almost MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Dude, Thunder are fucking scary. A+ offseason. Amazing. Could not have done that better. Did they draft anyone, by the way? I actually don't even... Yeah, Nikola Topic. Okay, I've been going at this for almost an hour. I don't want to speed up the video, per se, but I will... I'm going to speed up the video. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Anyway, Orlando Magic. Goga Bitadze. I struggle to pronounce that. 3-year deal. Gary Harris, 2-year deal. All these guys are returning, by the way. Jonathan Isaac, 5-year extension. I think he got paid a little too much, by the way. Franz Wagner, 5-year extension. Maurice Wagner returns on a 2-year deal. Contavious Caldwell-Pope on a 3-year deal. Of course, losing Jingles, but who do they draft? The Magic drafted, adding young talent at the 18th pick, Tristan Del Silva. You know, typically 18th picks don't really go the distance, but this Magic team brought their young core back, adding a phenomenal veteran and championship experience in KCP. Now, for them, it would have been nice to add someone like Paul George. Of course, that would have made this from a solid offseason to a great offseason, but you got to be happy if you're a Magic fan just because you're adding young talent at the 18th pick. You're adding someone as a veteran in KCP. You're bringing back a young roster that was finally putting it together and surrounding Paolo Banchero with as much talent as possible. He's your guy. He's the guy. And Franz Wagner, you're hoping he still improves as time goes on. So I think it's a solid offseason for the Magic. I would give them a B or B+. I don't think they're going to be super competitive by any means, but I think they're going to be better and they can build off of it on a year-to-year basis. Then who knows who they bring in the future? Who knows who they trade for? You know, I feel like one player can really just change everything for this team, and curious to see how it's going to go for the Magic. All in all, a B+. Anyway, Philadelphia 76ers, phenomenal offseason. I mean, you really couldn't draw it up any better. Re-signing Tyrese Maxey to a 5-year extension, Kelly Oubre returning on a 2-year deal, adding Andre Drummond, adding PG, adding Eric Gordon, adding Caleb Martin. Damn. Departures: Nicholas Batum, Obama, Buddy Hield, Paul Reed, Anthony Melton. Philly's good. And the biggest question regarding this team, in all honesty, is going to be playoffs. PG has had a bad resume in the playoffs, aside from his pastry years. Joel Embiid has not done shit in the playoffs. Those are your two best players. I mean, you could say Tyrese Maxey is better than PG. I don't think that would be like crazy, but I would still give PG the slight edge as of this past year. Granted, for those of you that are saying, oh, Tyrese Maxey easy, you're also forgetting PG's an elite defender. The only thing that you can say is bad about this offseason is paying Paul George for 4 years. He's 33 right now, up till he's 37. That could age terribly. It really could. But without question, you need to surround Joel Embiid right now, who is an MVP player. You need to surround him right now with the talent to win, and they fucking did that. So if they don't win, you can't say that they didn't give it their all. Like, seriously, dude. This is the chance. This is your opportunity, Philly. If you guys have it, this is the year, because PG's only getting older. All in all, though, Philadelphia 76ers get an A from me. The only reason why it's not an A+ is because 4 years. Oh, God. 37-year-old Paul George getting paid superstar money is gnarly. It's the only thing preventing me from the plus. Other than that, this is a great offseason. You're just phenomenal offseason. Phoenix Suns, Bobo returns, Damian Lee returns, Royce O'Neal, 4 years. Additions, Monte Morris, Mason Plumlee. Departures, Drew Eubanks, Eric Gordon. I mean, the only thing you can really celebrate here is that, like, Frank Vogel's gone, so maybe you're like, okay, it was the head coach. Our team's good enough. We have the personnel. I mean, shit. Phoenix. I can't tell you for sure that this team is good enough to even be in a conference finals, especially with how stacked the West is. Yeah, I mean, what? There's nothing. They couldn't have done anything. They don't have the cap space. They traded for KD already. They traded for Brad Beal. Like they already went balls to the wall. You just have to hope that Brad Beal goes back to Wizards Brad Beal and not last season Brad Beal. You also have to hope that they're all healthy, and the head coach is that much of a difference maker. I'm gonna give it a C- for the Suns. Portland. Trading away Malcolm Brogdon, but getting back Denny Avdija. Solid trade. And I like what Portland did there. And they drafted relatively early as well. What was their pick this year? Donovan Clingan. Portland didn't need to do much. They're developing, and they have to. Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simon, Shaedon Sharpe. Now adding Denny to the mix. And the number 6-7 pick to the mix. Just adding in talent. Still have Jeremy Grant if you want to trade him at some point. So I like what the Blazers did. Add more. You're not going to be competing this year, but you believe in Scoot, you believe in Shaedon, you believe in Anthony. You know what you got to do, and just continue to surround talent as much as possible. They did that. Give them a B+ or B, right? They don't need to do anything drastic. They don't need to sign all these crazy good role players. Like, obviously in an ideal world, Blazers get to have all the players that they want, but what you need right now to focus on is development of these players. You don't need anyone taking up their time. You just need guys who are talented and are able and willing to look towards the future and not so much worry about winning this exact moment. Now, is that going to prevent them from wanting to win now? No, of course not. You want them to win now, but you also want them looking towards the future. That's what Portland's doing. So, B+ or B from Portland. Adding Denny, good trade. Sacramento Kings are an interesting one. They added DeMar DeRozan, Jalen McDaniels, Jordan McLaughlin, losing Harrison Barnes, Chris Duarte, Davion Mitchell, Sasha Veznikov, also returning Malik Monk and Alex Len. I think the Kings basically put it all out there like, dude, if De'Aaron and Sabonis are it, this is their time. What did they lose in that DeRozan trade, by the way? They didn't lose much. I actually don't think they lost much. It was like some second-round picks and then a player, maybe. So they lost Chris Duarte, 2 future second-round picks, and Harrison Barnes. And maybe the 2031 first-round pick swap. I'm not sure if that was the Kings that gave it up. Not entirely sure. What I do know for sure, though, is that they believe in De'Aaron and Sabonis clearly. And do I think this is a championship team? No. But I can appreciate what they're doing and actually trying to compete. All in all, I would say this is like a B+. No. Let's keep it a buck. This is an A- offseason because, for one, I think the reason why I'm hesitant to even give them an A to begin with is because I don't believe that the team's going to win. But when you have De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis, and obviously you bring back Malik Monk, when you have guys like that, you're going to want to push for a championship run. And adding DeMar DeRozan, Jordan McLaughlin, solid backup point guard, Jalen McDaniels, solid wing. He's got potential more than anything. You know, he could be something, but on a Mike Brown-led team, this is a solid offseason. I would say A-. DeMar DeRozan's definitely a big pickup. And again, definitely re-signing Malik Monk. Did they get any players from the draft? And Devin Carter. Boom. I mean, solid offseason. A-. Obviously wanting to surround Victor Wembanyama with as much possible. Still having Keldon Johnson. Jeremy Sohan isn't too bad. Zach Collins, nothing crazy, but do have Devin Vassell, young talent. Trey Jones, young talent. Adding Harrison Barnes, a veteran, to this mix. It's going to be good to see how they surround Wemby, of course, but at the same time, the Spurs are also still looking towards the future. I would say they had a solid offseason. Probably a B, right? Because they're consistent and wanting to build towards doing something with Wemby, and you have to appreciate that as a Spurs fan. Toronto Raptors, re-signing Scottie Barnes to 5 years. Emmanuel Quickley to 5 years. Garrett Temple, adding Davion Mitchell, adding Sasha Vesnikov, losing Jalen McDaniels. And who do they draft again? They drafted Jacoby Walter. 19? Only 19. Interesting. Well, it's not like they could have done a ton too much anyway, but this team isn't going to be much better. Let's just be honest. Not a whole lot to say here. You did your job. You resigned Scotty. He's definitely good enough, but the team itself, all in all, I mean, you look at really what Toronto's done, and it's just not anything crazy. Not a crazy offseason. Adding Davion Mitchell, Sasha's, yeah, it's not bad, but C-. Just nothing really to go off of there. The Jazz, oh God. Don't even get me started with the Jazz. They're doing what the Nets have been doing, and that's like, why are you sticking and committing to Laurie as if like that's like this is not good enough. Your team's not good enough, but you're still keeping this team the way it is. The Jazz drafted 10 Cody Williams, and for whatever reason they're still keeping Laurie. Like, dude, you got to rebuild. Jordan Clarkson, you got, like, these guys just, you got to rebuild. Colin Sexton, you got to rebuild, bro. The Jazz just got to rebuild. This offseason has not been good. I mean, you look at who they drafted: Cody Williams, also Isaiah Collier, one of those. It's like pronounced one of those ways. Is my point. Jazz, for the love of God, please just rebuild already. It needs to happen. I would give this a C- for the Jazz. And the final team, after an hour and a half of being on here, the Washington Wizards, re-signing Richaun Holmes, adding Malcolm Brogdon, adding Jonas Valanciunas, trading away Denny. Laundry Shamet is Wade. If you're a Wizards fan, the one that you can for sure be happy about is drafting Alex Sarr. That's going to go a long way, right? That's 100% part of your rebuild plan, is adding guys like that who are capable of turning this franchise around. But damn, dude, these guys have been bad for a minute, and they're going to stay bad for a minute, because if you really look at what they have been doing. Okay, so just to clear up, this is what the Wizards got for Denny: Malcolm Brogdon, Carlton Carrington, who was a 14th overall pick, 2029 first round pick, second most favorable from Portland, 2028 second, 2030 second round pick. It's just about rebuilding for Wizards, literally. And I think Kuzma who's a valuable piece, and a lot of teams could use him. I think that he's got to get traded for more assets. No one's going to want Poole. So it's just, the Wizards are going to stay bad. It's just what it is. And damn. All in all, for the offseason, though, I would say, I mean, fuck, considering you gave up Denny just because, honestly, I don't even know why. I totally forgot why. When it happened, I was like dumbfounded at the time, and I was like, okay. Forgot what it was. But it didn't make any sense. And they're staying towards the path of a rebuild, to say the least. I think it's just going to be tough for Wizards fans for a while. Like, I don't even know what to grade this shit. A C? So, like, just an average offseason? Like, because if you really think about it, they had Alex Sarr hop into the lap. So it's like, does that make the offseason like much better? Yes, it does. It does do that, but fuck. Just everything else they did, like it just doesn't change the perspective of what's going on here. I guess you can appreciate adding Malcolm Brogdon and Jonas also to help teach these guys and develop these younger players. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh and I'm just being a downer. Because look, let me be honest, the Pistons aren't competing either, but I loved what the Pistons did because it's like you're teaching your guys how to win. But I guess I just view the Wizards in a different light. I don't know. Trading Denny, I guess, is just part of the reason why it's hard for me to look at this positively. It's because, like, you fucking get a young player who's solid and then you trade him when you're in need of young talent right now. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh if I'm looking at it from like a rebuild perspective, but I mean, they got the second pick in Alex Sarr. They got what was the other pick? 24, was it? No, it wasn't 24. 26. Yeah, but they got 24, Keyshawn Jones. Okay. If I think about it just from a rebuild standpoint, C+. A lot of that, too, is Alex Sarr just getting into the laps at number 2. That helps a lot, to be honest. But I'm dumbfounded by Denny. Denny opted to trade. But we'll see, though. Maybe the 14th pick, who was it again? Carlton Carrington. Maybe he turns out really good, and maybe they get something really good from the 2029 first-round pick that's the second most favorable. Who knows? Maybe they flip Malcolm Brogdon for more. Who knows? That's why 2020 is so crazy when it comes to these trades. This was a long video. This took a lot of effort. I've been here for a while. I'm ready to leave. No, but for real, I appreciate you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think about the offseason from your favorite team. What you think about for your own personal offseason grades. If there's any you disagree with or any you agree with, just let me know your thoughts and opinions. I love hearing it. As always, this is I've Been Different. We've been different. And we out.